In this video, I'm going to morph a series or a group of shapes over time. And this might be a little bit of a longer, kind of more procedural video. New composition, and I'm just going to call it morph. I'm going to use a number of different shape layers at the same time. So I'm going to start with a rectangle, and I'm going to set the fill to turn the fill on, and maybe we'll have a red at the top, and I'm going to turn the stroke off for these shapes. Just manipulate the fill or the shape itself. At the top, I'm going to create my, maybe we'll have a square to start with, and let me center that. Center of the stage. Okay, so that's our red square. Alright, so make sure that's clicked off that, and I'm going to add a polygon. And hold shift down, it'll keep it nice and square. And the polygon is going to have only 3 sides, or 3 points. And it's going to give me a triangle, which is cool. We want a yellow triangle, I think. I'm also going to center it so that it's sitting on top or up below a square. Move it into position. Its starting size, I want to make it a little bit smaller. Actually, I think it might be, I might transform its scale, the polystar scale, and I'm going to flatten it and stretch it out. So that is actually distorting the vector itself. And position that up underneath a square there, and then finally, let's twirl these guys up. I'm going to add a blue ellipse. Like so. Let's move the blue ellipse down to the bottom of the stack. And position it in the center. What is going on there? Sorry, that little interface element was stuck right underneath the screen recorder button. Anyway, now let's move that into position. I think its scale could be a little smaller. Alright. Okay, so there are my 3 elements that I'm going to start with, and over about half a second I'm going to change the scale and position of all of those, and also some of their corner attributes, definitely the corner attributes of the red one. So I might change that to blue dot. So it might be easiest to start with the blue dot. I'm going to have a look at its transform properties. Unfortunately, I'm just going to move the blue dot up so that I can access its transform button. I'm going to change its scale, take it down in scale, and also move it down to where it might have been sitting. Oh, oops, before I do that, I actually want to add a keyframe, of course. So I'm going to add a keyframe at 12 frames. So 2 keyframes, one at 0, one at 12 frames. Let's drop its scale right down to a little dot. And then we also want to change its position, so we'll need to add position keyframes as well. So at 12 frames, let's move it down to the bottom there, so it's sort of shrinking. Ripper. Now I'll come back to that, and move the blue dot down the bottom again. Now the yellow triangle is kind of going to stretch and shrink at the same time. So let's have a look at its transformation properties. So the scale I want to definitely change, and position. May as well add those 2 keyframes right from the start. Okay, so scale, shrink it down, we'll make it a bit taller. And we'll change the position so it's sitting right on top of the dot there. It's looking good. And we'll move off to our red square. Couple of things that I want to do to the red square, and that I'm going to make those alterations in the rectangle path rather than the transform rectangle. So size, position, and roundness are all going to alter over those 12 frames. Make sure we're at the 12 frames and add those keyframes in. Now I want it to move into a kind of a pill shape now, and I want it to be a kind of a long kind of pill like that. And let's drop the position down. Even make it a little bit better. Like that. I reckon that's quite good. Now I'll play that, and we get those elements to morph over time. So that's great, and I can just copy those. This is for the red square. I'm going to copy those keyframes, select them all, copy them, and I'm going to move to 13 frames, I think. Actually, we'll move to 12. So 1 second and 12 frames, and I'll paste them in there again. Now I want them to go, I want them to be reversed. So if I select those frames, I can right click on them and go to Keyframe Assistant, and then Time Reverse Keyframes. So now we've got, at least for the red pill, goes back to its original position. So let's repeat that. And while I'm there, I'm just going to add some easy ease to all of these keyframes. And then let's do that in our our yellow triangle. Copy those frames, select them, copy, and we're at 1 to 12. We can paste them in and then reverse those. So that's a right click on the keyframes that you want to reverse, Keyframe Assistant, and then Time Reverse Keyframes. And also in that same spot, is where we get our easy ease. So the keyframe assistant and then easy ease. We'll finish that off 112. So you can actually type in a time if that's easier to move your keyframe indicator. Paste those keyframes and keyframe assistant, reverse those. So now we've got a nice little looping, morphing animation that I will add. The easy ease. Got a bit of a little hiccup there. I think that's happened when I've changed the ease. But for all intents and purpose, that is looking pretty good to me, and I think we can move on to combining all of these elements in the one composition.